Jam Jam Experience, show 21. Getting into some pretty serious stuff here with James A. Paxton and my partner in crime, PIC, Cameron Glenn. How you doing?
I'm good, bud. Thanks for reminding me of how bad I am.
Well, no, it's just I enunciate it because I'm going to say it wrong eventually.
It's fine.
Yes.
I mean, it was like I said, it was a dumb way to start a dumb thing on the show, so
Absolutely.
it worked.
So what was your favorite part about seeing one of the greatest rappers ever, Kendrick Lamar, last week live? What was one of your favorite parts about the concert?
Dude, I don't know. There's so many great parts. Obviously, one of my favorite parts is at the beginning of Mad City, when he says, if Pyros and Crips all got along.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I've always wanted to be a part of that because I saw the videos when the song first came out of how hype it is. And I've always wanted to be a part of that, so I think that might have been my favorite part.
That's awesome.
What was your favorite part?
My favorite part of the concert was seeing him play Money Trees live while he was being levitated by a moving stage up in the air.
That was pretty hype.
He decided to go in the middle of the stage, not the middle of the stage, excuse me, in the middle of the arena on a smaller platform stage, and Money Trees started, and he went up and down on the stage. One, it's one of my favorite songs by Kendrick Lamar, and two, it was cool to see him do something different.
Did you catch what happened on how he ended up at the top of that middle stage? So, okay. The song Lust was on. You remember?
Yes,
and
yes.
he pops up on the middle stage. He's letting it play. And then the outer ring of that stage came above him. And it looked like he was in like a little cell with lights around
I
it,
remember
right?
that.
So the song, remember the words, let me put the head in if it's okay.
Yes.
He's popping up at the top. And did you see him laugh and smirk when she said it's okay? It's because he just, you get it?
Oh,
yeah.
So I got you.
Yes. This is a good part.
Great part.
So let's get into some actual sports then.
Absolutely. We're going to get into the show. We got trade deadline talk. We're going to start with the Detroit Tigers, and we're going to go around the league in baseball. We got some soccer to talk about for about 5 to 10 minutes. Cam's got some very important stuff. Gold Cup was last week. And then I get into the start of my football talk. As soon as football starts, that's going to be my main priority involving sports, and I have a lot of questions to start the season, and Cam's going to help me talk about that for a little bit. But we begin with the Detroit Tigers. They traded away 3 people total before the trade deadline, and the trade deadline ended at 4 o'clock July 31st, so no other trades can happen. And they traded catcher Alex Avila, left-handed relief pitcher Justin Wilson, and right fielder J.D. Martinez before the trade deadline. That's it. Those are the only 3 prospects they ended up trading away before July 31st, 2017, 4 p.m. for the trade deadline.
It's sad. It's not enough.
Right. You know, I gave my little spiel last week that Al Avila should have done something as the GM.
Right.
And he didn't do enough, clearly.
No.
And go through the trade with Justin Wilson and Alex Avila. You were doing a lot of research about that earlier and saying I thought it was a decent trade, and you were trying to tell me it may not be as good as I think.
It is. I mean, exactly what we said. It's decent. There was a grade, and I don't remember who graded it, but the Cubs got an A out of it, and the Tigers got a C, I believe. So it didn't look as great for the Tigers, which makes sense. They got 2 minor leaguers. They got, and I'm going to butcher the name, but I'm assuming it's Yammer Candelario.
I think it's Yammer Candelario.
Candelario or something like that?
Candelario. I think you say the D.
Right. And then Isaac Paredes.
Yeah.
Candelario is a third baseman, and Paredes is designated shortstop. It usually just says infield, but he played mostly shortstop for the past 2 years. He's only 18, and Candelario is only 23, so he's kind of young, but he's been in the minor league system with the Cubs since 2011. So he's got a lot of experience.
6 years of minor league baseball.
Yeah, that's a long time. So you'd think if he was something special, he'd already be up by now, right?
I'd agree with that.
That's what I was just thinking recently. But so like you said, I did some digging, and his batting average is the one thing that I looked at right away to see if he got on base at all in the minors and stuff like that, which, I mean, he does get on base a decent amount, but it's very, very inconsistent. It jumped around a lot. His best was 337, and that was in 2011. The closest one after that was 333, and if I remember correctly, that was 2015. So I'd say the best years of his baseball career are probably where he is right now.
Right. He's not going to get a hell of a lot better.
No. And he's said to be a decent fielder, nothing too special. I mean, he's an okay hitter. If I had to put a label on it, he's okay for the minors, which is not good enough for the majors.
No.
I mean, we both know that.
Clearly.
And one other thing, and I asked you, is he fast? You asked me how many bases has he stolen. It took us a second to find that. He only stole 7 bases in the minors, but he hasn't stolen a base since 2013. So that can either be the manager of the team that he was on wasn't really a big fan of stealing or didn't have him steal, or who knows. But mostly what you would get with this guy for hitting-wise is singles and doubles. A couple walks here and there, not too many, but not a great hitter. Obviously, we got a lot to look at, though, because he's been in the minors for 6 years. Paredes has only been in the minors for 2 years. I mean, he's 18. A year and a half, really. And there's not really too much to go based off of it. His career hitting is .296, which isn't terrible. But he looks like to be a more consistent and better hitter than Candelario. That's all I could really go off of, though, for Paredes. I haven't heard much about his fielding abilities. Like I said, he played mostly shortstop, but he's labeled as an infielder, so maybe that means he could play second. Who knows? But I think it's meh. And I told you this earlier. I'm kind of concerned that we're only picking up infielders. And 97.1 reminded me, it was the Karsh and Anderson show. I believe it was Karsh saying that the positions that the Tigers really needed in their minor league system was infielders, but I would have liked to see a little more variety.
Yeah, we definitely need some variety, but definitely for a trade deadline for a team who's not very good, not going to do anything this year, for potential for next year and on, with a lot of money in players who aren't doing great and a lot of players who are good tradable assets, for example, like Justin Wilson, Alex Avila, and J.D. Martinez, the return was not good enough in my opinion.
No.
The return could have been a lot better than average infielders right now. We have potential with 2 or 3 of these guys, but so far I'm not very impressed, and this is the third straw for this guy. Last trade deadline, he could have done something amazing. He did not. This offseason, he had many, many chances to do something very good, and now he did this, and now he's just another example on why the Tigers aren't going to be good for the next couple of years is because of your GM and your coach.
It's fair to say.
The players don't matter much when the GM isn't very good and the coach isn't very good.
Mm-mm.
There's no way around getting past that we have players who could be very great tradable assets, and they're not.
No. And, I mean, like I said before the season started, I liked who they had, and I thought they were going to do decent this season. Obviously, they haven't been, or else they'd still have everybody. But looking back at it, I do, as a Tigers fan, wish that they would have traded everyone in the offseason. We could have got more of a return for the players that we have now. Because the players that we want to get rid of are on down seasons. How are we supposed to get rid of them?
Right. I mean, by the end of this year, if you look at a big picture, before next year starts, there should be no reason that we don't trade 2 big guys. There should be no reason Victor Martinez is on the team. And there should be no reason that, well, he's just...
No, he's done. He's 10 home runs this season,
He's a
right?
team handicap. That's all he is right now.
He is.
I don't know any other way to say what Victor Martinez is.
No, that's
he is a team
you hit the nail on the head.
Handicap that could not do enough for this year. His average right now is .263. It's not very good.
That's the only thing he's a DH. All he's supposed to do is hit.
Right, and he's got 8 home runs, 44 RBIs this season.
8 home runs. He hasn't even hit double digits.
Well, that's not as concerning as he has 83 hits. He hasn't hit a ball.
So everything about the man is concerning
times
this year.
So he can't be on the team anymore. And my third point is you have to do something pitching-wise, starting and bullpen-wise. We have too many bad pitchers to overweigh the good pitchers.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know, the only thing I'm hearing about the best assets we have in the minors, from what I hear from all like the sports radio we listen to and shows we watch and all that, is our best asset is our pitching unit. So I don't know why it looks so skeptical in the majors when our minor league system is supposed to be full of all these good pitchers.
I mean, 47 and 56 as a record right now at the trade deadline is pretty crappy.
Ugh.
So we're going to continue with baseball. There were a couple trades that, I mean, not an amazingly big trade deadline,
No.
but the one that just came in right before the trade deadline was that the Yankees got Oakland Athletics starter Sonny Gray, who was, in my opinion, the best pitching asset at the trade deadline. He's pitching the best this year. He's 27. He's making $3.6 million this season. That's affordable. His career is 44-36 with an ERA of 2.42. Not great, but good. And he's just a very good pitcher. He goes to the Yankees where you have decent pitchers and can make the team better.
Yeah. And the Yankees obviously can afford that contract, and they could afford to re-sign him next season even.
Let me tell you something that I think is a very interesting stat, and it's all speculation, but their odds of winning the World Series just from adding Sonny Gray went up from 10-1 to 7-1, and their odds of winning the American League pennant went up from 4-1 to 3-1. So the Yankees became the clear favorite in the American League, in my opinion, by adding Sonny Gray, a better starting pitcher, to help with their great hitting, good pitching, and just amazing baseball this season.
I mean, that's all you can really say about it. Their hitting's been unreal. Their pitching's been good enough for their hitting, really. And, I mean, you got Aroldis Chapman in the back of the bullpen. What else can you ask for, really?
I mean, he's going to go down as one of the best closers.
Has to.
Period.
Has to.
Yes. And when you really look at it, in my opinion, look at their next couple series, the next two. All right. Of course, the Tigers, they have a chance to do something. And look to see how they do right after the trade deadline. But that next one's going to be important, and that's at Cleveland. As Cam and I talk about it, we always talk about important series in baseball. Yeah, there are series where if you lose 3 games, that's not going to affect you much. But the Yankees are going to be told as a good team or a bad team on how they play the 4-game series at Cleveland this weekend. If they win all 4 games, that's an extra 4 games against a playoff caliber team and first-place divisional team that other teams do not have.
And if you look at it, that one of those games is when Sonny Gray will make his first start for them, right?
Yes, Sonny Gray will have to make his first start either Saturday or Sunday for the New York Yankees. I think is how that'll work.
Right.
It's a good look for the Yankees. It makes every other team in the American League worried because they could win the World Series this year basically just by winning the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what I said last week about trading players and trading assets.
Yep.
You had to do something before July 31st, and the GMs who did, good for them. The GMs who did not, bad for them. The one I want to talk about before I give it to Cam is the Houston Astros. What did they do for this trade deadline that really made a mark at all to say, hey, we have the potential to do something. Let's help make our team better before.
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you.
You're asking me nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. They have not done really anything. They
No.
should have added another starting pitcher. They should have probably added somebody to the bullpen too. Just imagine if they would have scooped up Justin Verlander, that would have been a great pickup for the Astros.
Right. I mean, they did get a quality pitcher with Francisco Liriano.
Right.
But, I mean, that's one.
That's just one. That's what I'm
That's
saying. They
one.
should have added another one.
They didn't add enough. It's very clear that they did not add enough talent to their team to make them better.
Right.
The 4 teams that the American League needs to be worried about is Boston, New York, Cleveland, and Houston. Those 4. Those are the 4 teams who are going to really make a difference in this World Series race. And so I expected those teams to really do something, and the Yankees just pulled away, in my opinion, by getting Sonny Gray.
They had to have.
Yes.
There's no other team that really did much of anything major besides the Yankees, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
They made the biggest trade that they needed to, and it worked out. They get Sonny Gray. They can re-sign him next year. They can keep him, and they can continue to succeed.
27-year-old great starting pitcher who has a low ERA. Can't beat that.
No, you can't beat that.
Let's head over to soccer and go to Kicking It with Cam, one of Cam's favorite subjects to do and one of the best times to do it.
All right, so you mentioned USA in the Gold Cup. Well, they won. It's been a while since we've really been able to say that they won anything. They took out El Salvador 2-0 in the quarterfinal, and then in the semis they took out Costa Rica 2-0, and then Jamaica was able to somehow beat Mexico, which I don't know how. It had to have been their goalie. Jamaica has an unreal goalie, and Blake is his last name. Great goalie, plays in the MLS, awesome guy. But wasn't enough to top the U.S. The U.S. won 2-1 in the final, and this U.S. team has looked pretty good. And you've heard me say this before, and I mean, there's just upside to this team. They're starting to get kind of young, so they're starting to get a little more quick and a little more with how soccer is now. There's a difference in how the U.S. used to play compared to how they have been playing. They're playing more of like an international powerhouse compared to just let's kick the ball forward and see if someone can score.
Do you think the new leader of a head coach has done that?
He used to be here before. I think it's just good timing for him to be back.
Well, I mean, it is a still new leader.
Right.
He used to be here, but it's a different leader. It's my only point.
Right, it's different players. There's only a couple players who he's worked with before on the team, but I think it's good timing to have Bruce Arena be the new head coach because it's young talent who he can kind of mold and shape into his system.
You want to know something interesting? When's the last time the United States have lost a soccer match?
When was the last time they did?
Yeah.
Was it 2 months ago?
Yes.
Was it?
It has been a full 2.5 months since they've lost a soccer match. In my opinion, that's pretty good.
No, that is good. That's way better than what we've ever been able to say, in my opinion.
Right. They've tied a couple.
Yeah,
just to make clear, but
they haven't lost though.
Yes.
Tying it's acceptable in soccer. Not most sports, but in soccer it is.
But look at the wins real quick. You got a win against Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
You have a win against Nicaragua, a win against El Salvador, a win against Costa Rica, and then a win against Jamaica for the Gold Cup final.
Right.
They ain't loser teams.
No, those aren't terrible teams. They're on the low of what they usually are, but those are not terrible teams. You got that right. So then let's take a look at the women's team then. Just last night they played against Brazil for, I believe it's like the Tournament of Nations is what it's called.
Yes.
And they were down 3-1, ended up coming back to win 4-3. I saw the highlights for it, and wow, the U.S. women's team looked good.
Yes.
That last goal by, I don't know her first name, but Ertz was great heads up, great awareness. She was right inside the box, and the ball popped out to her off of an initial save by the goalie. The goalie got up really, really fast in her defense. She was ready for the shot, but Ertz just buried it right into the bottom corner where the goalie was not even able to touch it at all. And that gave them the go-ahead win to win the tournament, I believe, because they have the most points. I don't know how the Tournament of Nations works, to be honest.
They won the tournament because they have the most points.
Yes.
The goals were scored by Kristen Press, Megan Rapinoe, and Julie Rapinoe. Thank you. And Julie Ertz in the 89th minute. 80th minute, 85th minute, 89th minute.
Yep.
Good Lord.
Yes.
That is late.
Waning minutes of the game, they were able to take forward and win. So there was another big game that just happened on Saturday, and it goes by the name of El Clásico. Any soccer fan knows this name. It is Barcelona-Real Madrid. Big game, obviously, and it was played in Miami. First time that it's been in the United States. Did you know that?
I did not ever think it was in the United States.
Neither did I.
I had no idea.
I don't know why that's such a mind-blowing stat that everyone felt like they had to point out. So,
well, sorry, but like the two teams aren't from Miami.
I know they're both from Spain.
So that doesn't really shock me.
No,
but
it doesn't shock
really
me
cool.
either. But like, it's something that everybody felt like they needed to say for some reason. Either way, so the final score was 3-2. Barcelona was able to win. They had a goal from Messi in the 3rd minute, I believe, and then Rakitic scored not long after that. And then in the second half, PK scored to give them the 3-2 lead. Madrid made it interesting, though. They didn't have Cristiano Ronaldo. He was in Portugal with some tax evasion stuff. I don't know why soccer players always get hit with that, but they do.
Because they make so much money.
I guess. It's weird.
It's all rich people get that.
Right. So the only other thing that I want to talk about that game, though, is Neymar looked more selfish as the game was starting to move forward, and that's going to bring me into transfer talk.
He doesn't want to be there anymore.
I don't know if he does or not, because it looks like he doesn't based off his selfishness in the last few minutes of the game, and then he did get into a little altercation with a teammate during training at a Barcelona training and just kind of walked off, took off his jersey and walked off. So that is, like, to me, a big sign that he doesn't want to be there anymore. But he's got all the players in Barcelona want him. All of them are saying that they're not going to be upset if he leaves. But PSG really, really is pushing the buttons to try to get him. They are looking to pay 196 million euros, which is roughly $231.9 million in U.S. currency. Wow, that's a lot.
Yes.
So the biggest issue, though, about this is Barcelona's came out and said that PSG is going to breach the financial fair play, which I just recently looked this up. Essentially what it is if you go out and you get a player, you have to fully pay what you were supposed to pay to be able to get him.
So unlike if a player was going to get, if Justin Verlander was going to get traded and the Tigers could pay some of his salary, they cannot do that. You cannot pay any of his salary.
No, there's the way it works for transfers is there's a fee, essentially, to be able to pick up that player.
Okay.
And you need to have all of your fees completely paid off before you can go out and get another player. They got in trouble for this a few years back, and I don't remember what the repercussions were. Barcelona's saying that they could breach that, and then PSG could be in trouble again for it. But I don't know. It just keeps going back and forth, and honestly, who knows at this point what's going to happen. But a different team that I do want to look at is in the Premier League. Man U, and you brought this to my attention. I hadn't checked my notifications, but they did get a great player today.
Yes.
In Matic. He's a great two-way midfielder. It's going to help out Pogba a lot because Pogba doesn't really like to defend that much. So he's going to be able to sit up and play more of an offensive mid role. And also signing Lukaku from Everton, that's huge. Huge. And that helps because Manchester United just recently got rid of Zlatan. We're not sure where he's going to go, where he's going to end up. He doesn't want to play in the MLS, says he still wants to play in Europe, but whatever. And then another team, real quick, before we go into American football, is West Ham. They picked up Joe Hart, great goalie, awesome player, one of my favorite keepers, and Javier Hernandez, Chicharito. You heard that name? It's a pretty big name. He's nodding his head, yes. That's a good pickup for them because Joe Hart has the ability to hit nice long balls up to the top, where Chicharito is able to control him. And Chicharito has good passing, but also great finishing and great pace.
I have heard of Chicharito, but I've heard of him mainly because of his speed.
Yes, he's a fast player. He's a Mexican national player. Really, really good. I believe he's either tied or surpassed the most goals scored by a Mexican national player for the national team. Really good player. But let's go to American football now.
All right, so the season's coming up soon. As I said at the beginning of the show, football will consume most of the show, and I will lead most of the conversations involving football. And it's hard to talk about anything before preseason starts, but I wanted to start because it's starting up really soon, and then when the season starts, it'll make conversations a lot more serious week by week by week. But very carefully, I have 5 serious football questions for Cameron and I to talk about. First off, are the Cowboys going to be the same boys? 13-3 last year, lost in the semis just barely after Aaron Rodgers had an unbelievable throw, and Mason Crosby, the Packers kicker, made the field goal and kicked the first place in the NFC Cowboys out of the playoffs. They had Dak, they had Zeke, they were great rookies. But was that beginner luck, or are they going to be the same boys as they were last year?
I think they're going to be the same boys as last year on the field if Dak Prescott plays the same as how he did. I think they got a good system for Dak Prescott to be able to succeed there in Dallas. My only issue, though, is are Ezekiel Elliott's off-the-field problems going to translate on the field?
That could very well be.
That's the biggest thing that I'm going to look for this season, to be honest.
Dak Prescott last year, in his first year as a starter, 16 games. He had a completion percentage of 67.8, 3,667 yards, 23 touchdowns, and the most important stat everyone needs to know for a quarterback, 4 interceptions.
That's good.
So it's hard to beat that. It's the reason I asked the question.
It's real hard to beat that.
Especially as a rookie and a young guy,
right.
And a guy who can run too. He's just not a pocket passer. He can get out of the pocket, get some good rushing yards, has that threat on 3rd and long if he can't find anybody open to go get a first down. He's definitely he could be a top 10 quarterback if he has a great year this year.
Right. Like you said, he doesn't really like to chill in the pocket that long, but he is able to. He does have that ability. He kind of reminds me of a little bit how Aaron Rodgers plays, kind of.
Yes,
He
very
likes
much.
to pass the ball out of the pocket and be able to make receivers open up a little better.
Absolutely. So Cameron says they will be the same boys. I think they will too. I don't think a lot different is going to happen to them. Maybe not 13-3, but they're definitely going to get 11-plus wins this year.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'd
the
say
Cowboys are definitely my pick so far to win the NFC East. Going to a different division, who will win the weakest division in football? And that is the AFC South. You have the Houston Texans, the Indianapolis Colts, the Tennessee Titans, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think I could pick a standings that makes me confident if you gave me as many chances as possible. It's such a weak division. Whoever wins gets the 4 seed guaranteed first place loss in the playoffs this year. Houston looks good on defense, not good on offense. They got Deshaun Watson. Maybe that could do something. Tennessee's getting better. Looks like they can do something, but their defensive secondary lacks when you have an offensive quarterback on the other side who can do amazing things. Indianapolis Colts, they have one of the best quarterbacks ever, but their coach just makes really weird decisions, and their special teams makes up a lot of mistakes. And in Jacksonville, they don't have a good quarterback. There's flaws on every other team. Who is your number one pick to win the AFC South?
I think it all depends on Andrew Luck, how he comes back from. He had a shoulder injury, right?
Yes, sir.
How he comes back from that is really going to all depend on that. If he comes back and plays good, I think the Colts have a really good chance of winning that division. I can't even really make a case for any of the other teams, though, to be honest, besides Houston's defense. And if Deshaun Watson is able to perform decently.
Well, my pick is actually Tennessee.
Okay.
I think Marcus Mariota is going to have a great year. They added some receivers that are going to be really interesting to see what they can do. They got some speed. They can get open fast.
But what do they do on defense, though? That's the issue,
number
right?
one issue
Yeah.
is that their secondary is very bad and they're easy to pass off of.
Right.
But if their secondary plays decently and their offense can continue to do good, then I don't think it's really an issue, because I'm looking at their schedule right in front of me, and they don't necessarily have an amazingly hard schedule. If you really look at it. They got the
not
Jaguars twice because that's in their division.
Right.
All right. They got the Texans twice because that's in their division. But when you go outside of their division, they get to play the Browns, they get to play the Ravens, they get to play the Bengals, they get to play the Dolphins. There's got to be at least 2 or 3 wins there. You get 2 wins in your division, so that's 2. 3 wins against the teams I just said, that's 5. So you keep going, and maybe they can get another divisional win, 6. They beat a team they're not supposed to, 7. And then they get 3 more wins out of the other 7 games that I haven't named. That's 9 victories. 9 victories is probably the number 2 win in the AFC South. I just think it's amazing because if you look at any other division in football, any other division in baseball, there isn't a division that's just so crap happy that there's just nobody else to look at and say is amazing. Not in any other sport, basketball, hockey. If you look at one division of just 4 or 5 teams and go, wow, none of these teams are very good. And so the AFC South is very interesting to me. That's why I asked. My vote's Tennessee. Cameron's going to go with Indianapolis based on Andrew Luck. Very good choice. Question 2, who will be the best rookie quarterback at the end of the season? Or will this be a year where none of the rookie quarterbacks make any splash whatsoever? The rookie quarterbacks are Deshaun Watson, who's at Houston, Patrick Mahomes, who's at Kansas City, Mitchell Trubisky, who's with Chicago, and DeJuan Kaiser, who's with the Cleveland Browns. Any other rookie quarterback is not really going to start unless there's a big injury. And if that happens, we'll talk about that later. But those are the only 4 who has great potential to start. Who is one of those 4 who you think is going to have a major impact? Or do you think rookie quarterbacks will mean nothing in the year of 2017?
I don't think we're not going to have a Dak Prescott.
No,
come
absolutely
out this
not.
Year.
Absolutely not.
None of those quarterbacks are going to come close. I don't know, because the Bears were saying that they didn't really want to play Trubisky this year, but it's the Bears, so they'll probably end up playing him. I'd say Deshaun Watson probably, just because he's a really smart player. I think he could fit himself into any scenario, really, with any team, any scheme. He's a real smart guy. So I think he'll figure out this Houston Texans offense, and he'll make them a little better. Not outrageously better, but...
I think Deshaun Watson is number 1. You're not going to have a Dak Prescott, but I do think if Watson plays amazing for the Houston Texans that they have a clear shot to win the division and maybe win a playoff game.
Yeah.
After all, he has some key assets.
Oh, he does.
Will Fuller, DeAndre Hopkins. You put those on any of the good quarterback teams, they make a difference.
Yeah.
And I do think Deshaun Watson has potential to do something with his running ability and Houston's defense. So I do think he's going to be the rookie quarterback of the year this year. All right, number 4, how will the Atlanta Falcons respond? Not many teams respond from a 28-3 deficit and win a game, period, in whatever type of game it is in football. They lost the Super Bowl that way, and how will they respond? Will they end up winning the division? Will they end up getting back to the playoffs, potentially Super Bowl, or will they fall flat on their faces and not know what to do?
I think they're going to get back into the playoffs. I think they're a good team. I think obviously they took a big blow with that, but I mean, you've seen the commercials with Matty Ice.
Oh yeah.
Defeat fuels the fire, whatever, you know. The biggest thing that you can go through is defeat, which obviously, yeah, when you get defeated, you want to go back and beat that team. We saw that with Golden State picking up KD in the offseason. They wanted to make sure that they were going to go back and beat that team. Obviously, Atlanta's a different story, but I think they're still a good team that will contend this year too.
I believe they will contend as well. I think they're a playoff contending team who will make a big splash in the NFC. I mean, Matt Ryan will always be, including Matthew Stafford in this conversation, the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. Matt Ryan can do amazing things.
He's been a great quarterback his whole career.
But people don't talk about him like he's a great quarterback. So I think Matt Ryan's going to do an unbelievable job this year. They're definitely going to be back in the playoffs. They're going to be one of those 6 teams back in the playoffs. But the reason I asked that question is they have to respond to probably the biggest Super Bowl disappointment in a long time.
Sure.
It's
the biggest in history, I think.
It's worse than losing by 50.
Yeah.
It is.
Ugh.
You had a guaranteed victory and gave it up many times. There's no way to get around that. So I'm curious how the Atlanta Falcons will respond. My last question, and this is one of your boys, so that's why I want to ask it. Will Marshawn Lynch be better than before? I'm going to give you his stats real quick. For his career, before he retired, he had a big amount of stats that is going to be hard to fix. And what I mean by that is, how in the world do you compete with what he did? He had a lot of 1,000-yard rushing years. He was injured and then still came back to do amazing things. He once had 13 touchdowns in one season. His career touchdowns is 74. His career yards is 9,112. And he doesn't fumble the ball much, with being able to juke and make defenders miss. Will Marshawn Lynch be better than before on the Oakland Raiders and make the Oakland Raiders one of the best teams in the AFC?
No. I don't think you can come from a 2-year layoff like that and just hop right back into the NFL.
You know what? I agree with you. I don't think Marshawn Lynch will be better. I think he'll look decent.
No, yeah. He's not going to be a terrible running back by any means. He'll be one of the middle mediocre ones, but nothing special, though.
That's interesting. I mean, maybe he can do something, but at this point, I don't think he's going to make that much of an impact for the Oakland Raiders, who are now a Super Bowl contender. If you ask a lot of people, they have an amazing quarterback. They gave him a lot of money to prove to himself that he's amazing. They now have a running back, and they have different assets on that team that make them look good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see what Marshawn Lynch can do on that team to maybe get him to the AFC Championship. Nobody really knows what can happen in football right now, but these are some of the questions I'd like to ask right before we get into the NFL season.
Some good questions. The only thing I think that Marshawn Lynch is really going to be doing this year is coaching up the younger guys, because he's a veteran at this point, obviously. He's been around the league for a long time. He knows how everything works. He can help these running backs become better running backs for this Raiders team. But unfortunately, that is all the time that we have. James A. Paxson bringing in some football. He was able to talk some soccer with me. That was fun. We should do that some more.
We'll do that some more.
And we talked a little bit about the Tigers and the baseball season so far. One thing I do want to say, though, before we go, Beltre, 3,000 hits. It's awesome.
Unbelievable.
Great player. And the cool thing about it is the first hit was just like the 3,000th hit, a double into left field. What a great player. All right, we'll get back to you guys next week. Thank you guys for listening.